Hello, friends. I'm so excited to have Jodi Scott with us today from Green Goo. Yes, I said Green Goo, and we will understand more about this shortly. Darcy's going to read her bio to get started.
Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here and introduce all of us to Jodi Scott. Jodi is an entrepreneur, herbalist, and longtime student of the mind-body-skin connection. Her work was born not from a business plan, but from a personal journey of healing, listening, and learning to trust the body's innate wisdom. Through years of navigating her own wellness path, motherhood, and leadership, Jodi came to understand skin not as something to fix, but as a living expression of what's happening within. Her path has been shaped by nature, movement, presence, and the belief that healing happens when we slow down enough to pay attention. Whether through walking, ritual, or daily self-care, Jodi sees wellness as a relationship, one that integrates mind, body, and the stories we carry. Today, her work centers on helping people reconnect with their bodies, cultivate resilience, and approach skincare as an act of awareness rather than correction. I already have so many questions and intrigue. So with that, I will hand the conversation back over to you, Michelle.
Thank you, Darcy. Yes, I'm so excited to have you on, Jodi. There's so many different directions we can go. It's kind of like choose your own adventure today. For the audience out there, this is the first time I'm bringing somebody on that her healing is through products that I really think have such a beautiful story, and I feel like her, Jodi's story is just something to be shared. I was telling her before we even got started how important it is to, when you're selling things out there, but besides services, that oftentimes we're interviewing people that are providing services, but with products, when there's so much heart and spirit and magic behind it, it's so much more powerful. So why don't we get started with why, the kind of the family business model, and why you got started in this to begin with.
Ooh, so much goodness there. Well, first, it's a treat to be here with you all, so thank you. So my mom, sister, and I started Green Goo almost 15 years ago. So it's been a while. And I got my master's in health psychology, was pre-med, training resident physicians on the biopsychosocial model, and studying psychoneuroimmunology. So what does that mean? I wanted to change healthcare. I wanted to improve the model and rather than simply prescribing to patients, encourage physicians to get more data points from the patient in order to advance whatever path that may better serve them and add to the prescription that they were offering. In addition to psychoneuroimmunology, it's very much just mind body connection, the connection between your psychology, your nervous system, and your immune system, and how that's related to your wellness journey. And then my sister's an herbalist and a midwife. And I had this interesting moment where I was pregnant and we were very mindful of ingredients. We were reading labels, eating healthy, and I got a cut. And I went into my first aid cabinet. And first of all, I opened up the first aid cabinet and it was a disaster. I was like, this needs to change. Yeah, half of it was expired and it was just a mess. And of course, there was no sustainability. And I decided to look at the ingredients and I was like, oh my gosh, I do not want to put this on my body, nor do I want to put this on my daughter. So I went back and I shared the story with my sister, who was just starting to make topical therapeutics from plants. And I thought, do you use this stuff? And what we found very interesting is that the natural consumer was willing to abandon their natural ethos because they were just told these one time use chemical laden products were the only solutions that could get the job done. If it doesn't burn, sting, or dry it out, it's not working. And then it was even more interesting to discover that chronic skin conditions are at an all-time high. And the conventional consumer, not as interested in the ingredients, but more wanted better efficacy, Use 7 to 10 days. And if symptoms persist, go see your physician, which is inconvenient and costly. So we huddled up, my mom, sister, and I, and we thought, well, what if we can make a plant-based solution that is first superior in efficacy, so it meets everyone's needs, and oh, by the way, is also sustainable. And so that's how Green Goo was born. And little did we know that, we wanted to reinvent first aid, but it was really shaping the market in general because nobody knew what plant-based was then. That was not the term that we use today. And so it was very much forging the path to invite this idea that plants could be superior and provide the healing that people are looking for.
I love this. So how long have you guys been doing this now for?
Well, it was a hobby for the first 5 years. So it's been 15 years total. And, we were growing the herbs in our backyard and we had bees and we're drying the herbs on old screen door racks. I'm sure people going by thought, oh my goodness, what is happening here? And our kitchen turned into a full-on production facility. And we were so busy, we had to take our camping equipment and make an outdoor kitchen. And that's how we cooked our food. It was outside. And we were selling it at the farmers market. And we had no idea that we were going to have the impact that we did. We hoped that people saw and experienced the results that we were seeing and hoping for everyone else. But it far exceeded our expectations. We had the longest line at the farmers market, and moms coming up to us saying, my son has eczema and he'll finally go to school, or people suffering from chronic pain who are out enjoying adventures. Again, we get people lifting up their shirt and they're like weekend warriors, and they went on their bike ride and got into an accident. And usually they stuff dirt in a gash, which who'd have ever thought? And they're like, now I have Green Goo, which is portable first aid out in the woods. And I just put the Green Goo in. Then I come home and I get my 18 stitches.
Oh my God.
It was wild.
Wow. Wow. Um, so what brings you like the most joy in doing what you're doing? Are you guys still creating new products? Are you kind of at a standstill and just nurturing what currently exists? Where are you guys at with that?
My sister and I love to formulate. So, what's really special today, especially, is that we still make the formulas the same way we did in our kitchen at our manufacturing facility. So we bring the raw plants to the manufacturing facility, take it through this extraction process, protect the integrity of the plant, yield the highest amount of the medicinal properties from the plants, and then put that into the formulas. And so, what that does for us from a formulation standpoint is that it allows my sister and I to get really creative. So, we have a giant book of formulas, and there are some things that we just bring for a short period of time and then bring them back again, just depending on what we can do, because we are not able to keep all of the formulas in circulation, but we sure wish we could all the time.
So, that's so fun. Um, and I love your background. What an interesting background that you like combine all these different kind of learning and education to co-create these kind of magical blends. Can you share a little bit more about like what inspired you the most of all your kind of different educational backgrounds?
Well, psychoneuroimmunology at the time was not really considered a legitimate science. It was a consideration. Like it's correlational that stress makes you get sick. And today now, fast forward, obviously we have a lot more data and how these systems are all interconnected.
Mhm.
And it's been really interesting for me, full circle, being so passionate about our skin health. And our skin is born from the same embryonic tissue as our nervous system, and it is rich in neurotransmitters. So rather than just thinking of our skin as the largest organ, I really invite people to think of their skin as part of their wellness journey and as a part of their nervous system regulation and how they can get grounded on a day to day basis. Because not only eliminating the chemicals that are harmful to our system, those chemicals They stimulate our nervous system, so cortisol goes up because our skin is the first flight response, the first communicator. Then our immune system responds, and that creates inflammation. Well, then that creates a whole another interaction in our psychology, and so serotonin can drop. Then sleep gets compromised, and you feel this vicious cycle. And so it's really neat to be here today with the advancements that we've seen in the psychoneuroimmunology space and the connection that we can make in giving ourselves nutritional skincare as a part of calming our body and helping our skin signal to the rest of the body, hey, we're okay. Because our skin is constantly in fight or flight. I tell my daughter, when you're scrolling on your computer, you're stimulating your nervous system. Your skin is that responder. And thinking about that as a gateway to have more grounding. So it's been really fun for a long time, I thought, oh my goodness, did I get a degree that will have no purpose? Because I didn't get an MBA and became an accidental CEO. And the things that I care about most in this business is exactly where my education came from. And so it's really special to have that full circle moment.
Yeah, and to keep your heart in it, and I love the family business model too. I think that's unique. I don't think a lot of us have that opportunity. So I'm guessing you and your sister are still getting along.
She lives one house down. We built a tiny house on our property when we first started, and then literally one house down. So I have a special bicycle, a little old antique bike that I like to ride down to her house as we go back and forth to each other's gardens. And it's been really special. And my husband started working for the company. Her husband, my dad is retired military. So in the early days, he would sit in the warehouse and just label and listen. And then every once in a while, pipe up with some economic or logistical advice. But for the most part, he stayed in the background, just really listening and taking it all in. But it's been one of the greatest gifts, maybe the greatest gift in doing what we do is having the family and being able to do this together and weather the hard times and celebrate the good times and continue to just bring that authenticity through in these formulas and these products.
Love it. Darcy, do you have any questions?
I absolutely do. I want to thank you so much for opening up about parts of your journey and I relate with the question, is this degree gonna be used for anything? And I think there's so much about life and like following traditions that can bring out the self-doubt. Where there's heart, there's always gonna be a tunnel lit. Um, and your bio and one of the things that stood out so much and I'm hearing in you is how healing happens and you added when we slow down. And that really caught my attention. And it's something that I've absolutely experienced and I've heard in so many of our conversations on this podcast about creative healing and what that is. And I'm wondering if you would share a bit about how slowing down has shown up for you, either on a personal level or how it's been, instrumental in Green Goo being able to really serve people. Just anything you want to share.
Mm, there's a lot I could share here. So, from a personal standpoint, when we built this company, I had a 2-year-old daughter and we grew super fast. We went from 0 doors to 120,000 doors in less than 5 years. And I was in a constant state of fight or flight. And you just get used to being that way. And when people would tell you or share with you you need to slow down or feel grounded, I thought, well, that's just a luxury. No one gets to feel that way and work this hard and be a woman and be a parent, running a household and raising your children in the farm and this company. And fast forward, during COVID, we were 98, I mean, essentially 100% retail. If you had a poison ivy, you went to your local pharmacy. And all of a sudden, no one's going into stores. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to terminate my entire team. And our team pivoted very quickly. And like the rest of the world, trying to build an online business overnight was hard. Trying to find packaging was hard. I couldn't even find containers to fill our salves in, because if you didn't have cash to pay for the containers right when they became available, you couldn't buy them. And somehow our team was able to pull it together. I mean, talk about a beautiful, just knowing your mission and your vision and having the carpet pulled out from underneath you, and this team just gelling and being creative. And we got it done. And a year into that, I recognized so many of my friends, companies, or brands and colleagues that I had such appreciation for didn't make it. And we were competing against the biggest companies in the world. And I thought, we can't weather another pandemic. And so we started looking for a financial partner. And the short version of the story is we found a group that was very focused on plant-based, and we were rolled into their portfolio. So we didn't own the company, but we were still very much a part of the company, and the growth of the company was contingent on our growth. And so on paper, we sold. In spirit, it was a partnership. And unfortunately, a handful of weeks into that partnership, the leadership and original founders were faced major legal and financial issues. And I had less than 24 hours to terminate my entire team, including my mom and sister, including my husband and my brother-in-law. And the carpet was pulled out from underneath me. My purpose was gone. My business that I cared so much about was gone. And I'm living in a state of constant anxiety. How are we going to pay our bills? We're no longer employed. We lost everything in the transaction. And I'm living in a state of depression. In the past, shoulda, woulda, coulda. And I had just hired, a coach. Like, people had told me, like, you should have a coach. So I got this coach, and I was only a couple months into the friendship and the coaching. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to call him and tell him I can't pay for this. So I texted him. I said, Monday, to me, I can't be there at 5 o'clock. And he's like, what happened? And short version via text. And he's like, Jodi, you show up Monday at 5 o'clock. I will be there every Monday for you until you don't need me. And in that moment, that didn't feel good, actually, because when you feel that way, it almost feels inconvenient and overwhelming for someone to offer support. And so I didn't plan on going to that meeting on Monday. And then Monday, I felt overwhelmed with guilt. So I decided to go ahead and go to the meeting. And I was just going to tell him, thank you, Timmy, but no thank you. And he gets on the phone and he's like, so what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, my mom and sister and I had this wild thought we were going to buy the company back, but we don't have anything. Like, what prompted it was that we're going to run out of our own lip balm and we can't live without it. My emails are coming in. My son's a paraplegic. This is the only solution. My mom has diabetes. This is the only solution. My child has eczema. I'm like, I know the world needs this, but there's no way we're going to ever be able to buy this back. And he's like, okay, Jodi, your mental fitness boot camp starts today. And I go, what? And he goes, you're going to set your alarm every 3 hours. And I was like, wait, what? You're talking about a woman who's been on go mode. How am I going to stop? And I'm still in that mindset, right? How am I going to stop doing something and set my alarm every 3 hours? And then he goes, and then you're going to do a presence exercise. And I'm like, okay, now you've really, like, what on earth is even a presence exercise? And he's like, we're going to focus on one of your five senses each time, and just that one sense. So take your shoes off, go feel your feet on the ground, listen to the birds, watch the clouds go by. He's like, I'll teach you. 30 seconds to 2 minutes, you're going to do a presence exercise. I'm like, this is nuts. And he's like, Jodi, the same way you go to the gym, you need to invest in your mental fitness. I don't have the answers. You do. We just need to get to a place where you can figure that out and find the answers that you need. And so I thought, this is bananas. So the first time I set the alarm, I went outside And my husband's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm doing a presence exercise." He's like, "What is that?" And so you asked me about slowing down. And this was my first encounter of what that meant to get really present. And I had this idea that I thought I had to do 2 hours of meditation every day to get to where people talk about slowing down and getting present. And what I learned was how valuable that 30 seconds to 2 minutes compounded throughout the day. And the science is there to support it. And of course, the first handful of times were very difficult, but then it got easier. And then I started to want to do it more. And then a handful of weeks into meeting with Timmy every Monday, I was like, "Hey, Timmy, I got an idea." He's like, "Of course you do. What's your idea?" "I think this is the next thing that I'm going to do." And I learned the value of presence and grounding, and that I could have both. It was a yes and, because the grounding is a mindset exercise that you can do throughout the day, still doing all the things that you're doing, maybe making some small changes. Maybe when you go pick up your child from school, instead of scrolling on your phone, you just stop and look at the clouds and have a sensory focused nervous system grounding moment, and find those moments throughout the day. And it was an absolute game changer for me. And I bought the company back. It took me 18 months, but I did it.
Bravo.
Gosh, thank you for sharing that. The when something is the hardest, there's this choice point, or the hardest, air quotes, when it feels impossible for one reason or many. It sounds like you got really connected with your heart. And that's where so much wisdom comes. And you shared before about the like starting the company, and before we started recording, sharing, what keeps some of the heartbeat going, with family and the company. And I'm wondering how that practice has helped you along the way. Talk about life changing and having this business evolve and probably demand so much more of you, especially as people are really seeking. I'm seeing more than I ever have, which, is limited, and I've lived some life. People are searching for ways to support local family and have sustainable, in their bodies, on their bodies, in their homes. And I'm certainly one of them. So my guess is that your business has also boomed quite a bit.
Well, when we sold, they stopped production when they were faced with the financial issues. So in that 18 months, I had to keep the business alive with a inventory leaving day by day and running out of your hero products. So we are on the rebuild today.
Hmm.
But what's been so powerful is that our customers, I only got to tell them this story maybe 4 months ago. And they were so supportive. They were like, "Oh my gosh, we are so grateful. We are here. We're standing by you. And by the way, this is still our first choice," which was so cool to know that when their Green Goo ran out and they had to go find something else, they still preferred our product, which was so great. And just the cheering, like, I've never felt so much love and joy and gratitude. And so today, in theory, I'm actually working harder than I was then. And yet, I am so much more grounded in it. And my body is not taxed the same way it was before. And I would say that if I could tell my younger self this story, I was only working at 20% capacity then. Like, my capacity today is far greater. I sleep better. I do my sanctuary Sunday, which is what I love. I love to lather up with the Green Goo every Sunday, do my nutritional skincare, which is part of the grounding, and just put my bathrobe on, let my skin drink it up. I'm so much more intentional. And then the halo effect that happens as a result. My daughter was at school, and I picked her up, and she's like, "Mom, you're not going to believe this. the teacher pulled me aside after my exam today, and I know she had worked really hard preparing for this exam. And I looked at her, I was like, oh no. And she's like, yeah, that's what I thought. And he goes, I want to applaud you and how you took your test. And she was kind of taken back. And he goes, you rubbed your fingertips together, you took a couple deep breaths, and then you got really focused. And you went through and you answered all the things you didn't know. And then you came back, you took a couple more breaths, you got present again, and then you went back and you utilized and leveraged the ones that you did know to help you with the ones you didn't know. And he's like, that was really great. She's like, Mom, it was like I was talking to you. And I was like, oh my gosh, if that is the only thing that comes out of this exercise, this wild ride that we are on, then I am forever grateful, because for her to learn this at 14 is such a gift. She came home from school and went and sat on the back porch. It was a beautiful day and was like, I'm just going to take in nature and just enjoy this for a few minutes. And that is so special.
Mm, that's amazing.
I have curiosity about where there could be a connection between the products we use and what we're drawn to. Like I'm hearing like what you're sharing about the on Sunday, like just lathering yourself up. I'm thinking my sister. She's so much like that. She's one of the only reasons that I paused and sat on a hammock and realized that it is one of my happy places, because for years she's modeled, just gonna go sit on the hammock and just take a moment, and the world is just better. And I'm thinking about how the products that we use could really influence our lifestyle in more ways than how we look. And one example you just gave was about taking the time to let your skin soak it up. And I also wonder how the when we use products that are more natural, we may be more drawn to where they come from. And so there's this ripple effect of slowing down, of honoring our planet, of sustainability, and the way that that can then impact our nervous systems through wanting to be in nature. So I'm not sure. That's just a hypothesis. It's one I would want to experiment with, because all of those things are just make life better.
There's real science and data to support that today. So,
Mm.
I think when the Industrial Revolution came around, so these man-made chemicals are very new. For the first time, when we could mass produce to the public, we didn't have the transportation or the technology or Amazon same-day shipping that we have today. And all of a sudden, they could mass produce to a lot of people. And it could take years before it got to people's homes. And there was this idea that more value meant more volume. So these synthetics became a part of stabilizing very large volumes with water in them and making sure that it could get to people long enough before it went bad. And maybe about 15, 20 years ago, there was the theory that perhaps some of these ingredients could be harmful, but we didn't really know. And today we know. We know phthalates and parabens and petroleum, forever chemicals are endocrine disruptors. And we just weren't quite sure what that meant, that they emulated and stimulated our endocrine system. We know now today that it actually increases cortisol and it increases inflammation and starts that cycle that we talk about. And so just by eliminating those chemicals that you put on your skin, your largest organ taking all of this in, you can actually start that process of getting more grounded and getting more present. And then when you add nutritional skincare like that, that is enhancing your body's ability to do what it already knows to do, removing the friction and adding the nutrition, all of a sudden you're like, I feel good. And I think that's part of why advertising and so forth has been so persuasive, is I think we know in our DNA that like when skin glows, someone is healthy, someone is happy. And we now know today, now that there's more botanical research out there, like calendula flower, one of my favorite flowers, something, a flower that we use in most of our products. And it's an astringent, so it's great for wound care, antifungal, anti-yeast, antimicrobial, also very high in skin repair. Well, a recent study just came out that when calendula is absorbed through the epidermal layer, it actually increases and stimulates the enzyme that helps regenerate your telomeres. Your telomeres are the end caps of your DNA and are connected to your longevity. And so the fact that we can now have a direct, it's not correlational, it's causation, that we can see that this is in fact actually true. And it's just so cool to see not only more of the data to support why we should avoid these other ingredients, but then where the value is in this botanical development. And we use an acronym at home called shaman, which I think you would appreciate. And so my daughter being inundated, of course, with everything of what you should buy and what you shouldn't buy and so forth. And so I thought, well, what is a not overwhelming way to have little practices throughout the day be a part of your wellness journey? And so we came up with the acronym SHAMAN together. And so S is for sleep, and that's adding to the sleep bank. And I think that's really important for the kids because, and us, right? When all of a sudden you're like, why am I feeling so crummy? Well, maybe just think about the sleep bank for the last couple days, and maybe it's time to add to it, even if it means you take a nap. Add to the sleep bank, give your body some rest. Rest is recovery. H is hydration. We are water. We are made of water. So think about the things that are pulling water out of you and also the things that can keep you hydrated. So that can be not just what you're drinking, but what you're not drinking, but also foods offer hydration. And when you think of something simple about choosing a carrot over some fruit snacks, you're like, oh, I'm going to get hydration. So it's just like that little thing. And skincare, a lot of the skincare that we have, the parabens, the petroleums, the chemicals, they're pulling hydration out of our cells. And I always use the example like when you blow up a balloon and you let the air out and then you blow it back up and you let the air out. That's what our cells are doing every time we're putting these chemicals on our skin. And then A is antioxidants. So just thinking about antioxidants from a food standpoint. When you want to go choose something from the fridge or the cabinet, and then that way you're not overwhelmed with like what I should eat, what I shouldn't eat. Just get some antioxidants in there, and that in its own way will guide you to the right food choices. And then M is mindfulness, and that's practicing, set that alarm every 3 hours if you need to. That's setting mindful moments throughout the day to get present and add to that mindfulness bank. And then the last A is avoid. So of course that also means that specifically means avoiding certain ingredients, but it also could be avoiding a situation or a person. Thinking about your energy is protecting your energy. And when you start to get present with your energy, when all of a sudden you stop doing the things that aren't serving you, it becomes very expansive and contributes to your ability to get present. And then N is nature, because nature, it gets you there real quick. You get that cortisol drop, the inflammation reduction, good sleep. And so we use that a lot as a little North Star in our house.
Mm, I love that. I love it's like so simple, but yet it's like an ethos. And I think that that's why I brought you on today, Jodi. You're just so rich with so many little nuggets of wisdom um, and I just love kind of the ripple that your products represent. I mean, we're always talking about from the inside out, and I think it's so important to sometimes go from the outside back in. Especially when we're talking about our bodies and our human form. Like it's hard to maintain our soul's purpose if we're not taking care of all these different elements. And your products are so beautiful, and I was lucky enough to get some of them sent to me, and I'm really appreciating them and appreciate you and your family for coming together and infusing the love, because I definitely feel it topically. Darcy, do you have any other last minute questions before we wrap up?
I'm wondering, Jodi, if there's anything that any an invitation for our listeners for just anything that you'd want somebody listening who's wanting to connect more with the heartbeat of their life, gift themselves more of what they're needing, whether that's on their skin, whether maybe it's for a loved one. Just any words of experience or wisdom or an invitation you want to share.
Mm. I invite you to take the time to explore the five senses and spend 30 seconds to 2 minutes in that space periodically throughout the day. Because I think oftentimes it can feel really overwhelming. Where do I begin? And that 30 seconds to 2 minutes can be a pretty special unlock.
Well, I will definitely take that. Today it's Monday, but I will do that every day, any day. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.